If the results that we're seeing in America are what we want, then just keep doing what we're doing.
They're not.
But they're not.
For decades now, we've been consuming hydrogenated oils. We've been consuming pesticides through our food. The way that the animals are being raised isn't healthy. The soil isn't healthy.
Regenerative goes beyond the outward activity.
Yes.
This is more the motivation. When I came into the organic market, I had to change my approach.
Yeah.
And here's why.
Hi, welcome back to the Sustainable Farm Podcast. My name is Jaylee, and I am here with Jerry. So to start, I have a definition here that actually, where did you say you got this definition from?
Webster's Dictionary.
The
1828.
Yeah, so this is awesome. And this is the definition of regenerate, because we're going to be discussing kind of regenerative agriculture in this episode. So this says to generate or produce anew, to reproduce, in theology, to renew the heart by a change of affections, to change the heart and affections from natural enmity to the love of God, to implant holy affections in the heart. Beautiful. That's a beautiful definition. So keeping that in our hearts and in our minds as we talk today, let's talk about regenerative agriculture and how it affects our food and our health. We'll start there.
Okay. So when I first went to school, I became a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about organics.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about regenerative.
Yep. Those are becoming buzzwords these days.
Sustainable is another one.
Yep.
I didn't know a lot of anything, really, to be honest with you.
Well, I'd say I'm there now, and you've got some years behind you.
Okay.
It's wisdom, you garner it as you go on.
So when you've lived longer, you can kind of see. Do you know when you measure your kids and you draw a line on the door frame?
Yep.
You can look back and see how they've
The
changed.
progress.
I love watching kids grow up, but I've been watching agriculture over the years.
Kind of grow up.
You know, one of my favorite things to do as a farmer was to go to auctions.
Yeah, why?
Well, you can get a deal.
Oh, this is fun.
It's a social thing. All the farmers go.
Yeah.
The only problem with an auction is somebody's going out of business.
Oh, is that what that means? Oh.
They're ceasing to farm, and they're liquidating all their machinery, all their animals, all the tools, everything.
Similar to when you go to an estate sale, you keep it in the back of your mind.
Exactly. But it's an opportunity to get something at a better price than buying it new.
Sure.
And it's a social thing, and they always have good food there.
That's fun. I've never been to one. I'd love to go.
Actually, I'm thinking about going to one Saturday.
Okay.
But there are no auctions anymore.
Oh, except for the one on Saturday.
Actually, I was talking to my favorite auctioneer to do an appraisal of our farm land
Yeah.
and our machinery because I'm transferring ownership to the next generation.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And it was going to cost too much, but I had a good talk with him, and I said, his dad told him something. He says, the only problem with our business is we're working ourselves out of a business, out of a job. Because there were a lot of farmers. Now we're down to less than 27,000 dairy farmers in the whole United States of America.
That's crazy.
And we're losing 4 farms every day. But we've got to get back to our affections and regenerative agriculture.
Yes. Beautiful.
Okay. Why did we lose all these farms? What was wrong? Were they bad farmers?
Probably not.
No. Now, one of the problems was we had technology come in. We had automation come in.
Yes.
And if they didn't have the cash flow and if they didn't upgrade and keep up with the competitors, they were left behind. And so, to be honest with you, they could have been a little bit inefficient, or they could have been a slow adapter of new technology. But we have seen dramatic change in our food production.
Yes.
In one of your definitions, I wrote down a change of affections.
Yes. Yep. That was
Okay.
that was in there. Yeah.
And when I came into the organic market, I had to change my approach.
Yeah.
I had to change my worldview. I had to change, and here's why. I didn't use a lot of medicines. I didn't use a lot of additives. I didn't use corn even, as far as a plant, for silage. But I had to think more about the animal. Mm-hmm. What I did when I switched from conventional to organic, I had all Holstein black and white cows.
Okay.
And I bought a Jersey bull. Mm-hmm. And the reason was I wanted to cross the breeds because the Holstein breed, they were picking the best bull and the best cow, and the gene pool was getting very narrow.
Okay.
And somebody gave us a registered golden retriever dog.
Oh, wow.
When we got married.
That's nice.
A purebred golden retriever.
Yeah.
And they have a weakness, and it's called hip dysplasia.
Oh.
But if we had a mutt, a cross between two different breeds, mm-hmm. they don't have that problem.
Interesting.
And I was going into an organic market, and I didn't want a cow that made a huge volume of milk but had weaknesses.
Right.
That I would have to doctor and fix.
Right.
Because you can't use the medicines. You can't fix those.
Yeah.
So I was changing my affections on the volume of milk that my cows that I was looking for, to the quality of the milk and the stability or health of the cow.
Sure.
I wanted to get a breed that had hybrid vigor when you cross a Jersey and a Holstein. Mm. That first calf, the female calf, when she freshened and had a cow, she had a lot of volume and she had a lot of butter fat. It was an amazing thing.
Wow.
It had very few problems.
I love that.
So I wanted a trouble-free family.
That's good. Well, I think it's fair to say then that regenerative is synonymous with change, right?
Yes.
As long as that change is headed in the right direction, and that takes a certain set, a mindset and a set of perspective. And it sounds like you've been kind of cultivating that over the years.
So some of the things that I've changed, I changed my focus from quantity
to quality.
To quality.
I love that, as it should be.
And really, to be honest with you, this impacted my family life too, because I was not so focused on milking more cows, so spending more hours away from them, as I was on giving the animal the quality and also giving my family the quality if they needed. Now, grazing was one of the requirements for the organic model. Organic grain was another requirement. So those were normals. Some of the other things we did, we used to feed the calves with a bottle. We fed them cows' milk, but we milked the cows into the tank, and then we took some more milk and fed it to the calves. And we struggled with that. Babies have to be loved and cared for. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I was the only farmer, and so I would try to do things as efficiently so I could spend time with my family. And it didn't always work. You know, if you had a sick calf, now you had to spend extra time. Right now, if I want to fast forward, I have a daughter, Megan, who's a vet tech.
Yeah.
And she is totally dedicated
She's
to the
amazing.
calves.
Yeah, she's great.
And she knows how to use herbs. She's holistic. She's the right person.
I've heard you say a few things as you were talking. I heard you say change.
Yep.
And you just said holistic. And you gave the impression that you have kind of slowed down a little bit in terms of caring for the calves and making sure everything is cared for and not rush. And all of these things speak to regenerative agriculture. Is there anything else that you would kind of add into that definition?
The biggest thing is the soil.
Yes, which we talked a lot about in the last episode.
When you have a pattern, and we all develop patterns, some of the fields are behind the house, the pastures. Some of them are across the road. There's a creek that's behind the barn, between where the manure is and where the pastures are.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard to fertilize that soil on those fields.
Okay.
And when you have a tractor and manure spreader, you have to get somewhere to spread manure.
Yeah.
And so they got neglected. and the production was declining, and I was aware of it. Well, we got a couple of years of drought.
Wow.
And so we took advantage of that opportunity because now we could get the tractor up on those hills.
Okay.
Typically, if you're spreading manure, and hopefully you guys never have to do this, but you want to go in on the high side of the field
Okay.
and spread going downhill.
Okay.
When you start, you have a heavy load. And if you can drive in the same direction of what you're going to harvest with a mowing machine, if you make a little depression, a little rut, you won't have to cross it like a railroad track when the ground is dried out.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of, it's like raising children. You have to think ahead and not make a mess of things.
Wow.
You know, if you're going on a road trip, you have to have what you have to have on the road trip. It's a planning ahead. So anyway, these fields are uphill. So you would have to go across a wet place and have a heavy load and spread. And by the time you get to the top, it would be empty and it would be easy.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to do this properly. But we had a drought July and August, and it was rock hard. So we went at it.
Good.
And every opportunity, we have covered all these fields.
Good.
And the other thing is, in regenerative, not only do you have to feed the soil, but you have to rest the plants. So if you overgraze, if you leave the cows there too long, it mows it down short. There's not much green leaf area.
Yeah.
Then when you remove the cows, there's no photosynthesis. So they have to draw sugar from the root system.
Wow. Weakens it overall.
To build it back.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to be longer regrowing to where the cows can eat it again.
Interesting.
It's kind of like if you have a savings account and you run it to zero.
It takes longer to
It
get
takes
it built
longer
back
to
up.
build it back up.
Yeah. Great
Okay.
analogy.
So now I'm focusing more on the cows.
Yep.
I'm focusing more on the soil. And now I'm focusing on the crops. So I'm not just managing for the maximum milk production. I'm managing for the organic matter in the soil,
Yeah.
for the regrowth of the plants. You've got multitasking going on.
Yes. Yes. Not to mention, and I don't want this to get lost, not to mention the work that you're doing in yourself as well. And I think that that really needs to be said when we're talking about regenerative agriculture, because I can't say in the same way that that's happening with these conventional models. You're learning and you're growing with nature, and you're discovering new things, and you're figuring out new ways to do things, and you're not just constantly doing the same thing over and over to the same field. And I think that there's a spirit in that.
It takes a lot of awareness. It's a power of observation and understanding.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of understanding.
And patience.
Well, how do you learn? How does somebody get wisdom?
Through experience.
Well, you make a lot of bad choices, right?
Yeah.
I told you how to spread the manure properly. I did it improperly.
I was going to say, how'd you figure that out?
And then I had to drive over the ruts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
But I think that falls into the regenerative definition.
Now, it's going to take us time to learn this. For those of you that are watching, let's say you're just going to do a garden. Let's make this small, the farm small.
Okay.
Let's say we're going to do a garden this year, first time. Find somebody who's done it more times than you.
Yes. Yeah.
Volunteer to help them.
Find a mentor.
Ask them questions.
Yeah.
Listen to what they say. Develop the power of observation. Why do you have all these plants here and this row of these plants out here? Because different plants protect other plants.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a lot that I don't even know, but I know there's something to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So find somebody who knows. Actually,
What do you have?
I have a book. How many of us know how to read? I asked this question. I live in a college town, Alfred University, and we do a lot of tours. And the first question I ask, kind of to break the ice, is how many, these are college students, some of them at a 4-year, some of them are in grad school. How many of you know how to read? And the hands go up. Why did I ask that question?
Hmm.
The next question I ask them is, what did you read this morning?
Oh, wow. Their phones probably.
So where I'm going with this is, if you have the ability to read, but you're not reading good material,
Yeah.
how much help is that to you?
Right. Right.
Are you ahead of a person who can't read, who's illiterate?
Not if you're not reading.
So I have a habit of reading.
Yeah.
Now, one of the benefits of reading is it regenerates you in your thinking process so that you begin to think. So my focus is no longer on what's the milk check going to be this month. My focus is on how can I keep the animals healthy. Let's use the calves for an example. We talked about them at the first one. Those calves are fullback material. I mean, they are strong.
Yeah.
They
Stout.
are beefy.
Yeah.
They are nursing
Nice.
directly from the cows.
Love that.
They are a force to be reckoned with. They are strong. I mean, their strength is immeasurable. I don't even worry about them.
Good.
But we had to change our approach to how we clean their pen every day.
Yeah.
So they're slick and shiny and clean and healthy.
Yeah.
We meet all of their needs, including exercise. And we're going to do a video. I've got to promise
I can't
you
wait.
guys.
I can't
We're
wait.
going to do a video, and you can watch these calves and tell me what you think.
I love that.
Now, this gives me inspiration to want to find out what I haven't learned that I can do to see this kind of response, whether it's in the animals or in the soil.
Which tells me you have a spirit of regeneration. If you still have that hunger, that desire, we all
I just
should.
read this book.
Yes.
This book was printed last year. This is not a year old. This is printed by a doctor who's a researcher from London, Chris Van Tuliken. This is about ultra-processed people.
Well, let me introduce this before you get into this, because this is perfect for the next point that we need to talk about, and that's how regenerative agriculture affects our food and our health.
Yep.
And I think this would be an excellent segue. So talk about this, keeping regeneration in your mind.
Okay. When we experience problems, we have to find solutions.
Correct.
Okay. Now, when I was at the summit up in Albany, the Commissioner of Agriculture gave the often quoted definition of insanity. Do you know what insanity is?
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Okay. He mentioned that. I'm glad you know it. So that means I need to think differently.
Yes.
This is regenerative thinking.
Yes.
So I need to go outside of the box.
Yes.
And I need to create a new food system.
Yep.
And so where do I begin? Well, I begin with what I'm doing now. And then I want to add new diversities. Plant a new orchard.
Yes.
Get the bees, these new things. So we have multiple species of animals.
And I know that you do rotational grazing as well. So
Yep.
you have different species of animals, but also in how you're managing them as well.
Let's take the chickens, because we just talked about the chickens.
Yeah.
The chickens' manure is very high in nitrogen. Now, if you want a grass that's growing rapidly, you need to give it nitrogen. And if you're a conventional farmer, you'll use anhydrous ammonia or purchase nitrogen fertilizers, which costs you money, and you have to apply it, and it could be dangerous. Anhydrous ammonia is what they make bombs out of.
Oh, great.
So there's risk
Okay.
there. Now, what if I said chickens excrete manure that's loaded with nitrogen? Got any ideas what we could do with that?
Why have we made things so much harder than they have to be?
Why not? And chickens are ready to harvest for protein in 8 to 10 weeks. Now, chickens like to be on the ground, and they have a thing called a chicken tractor. Do you know what a chicken tractor does?
Yeah, you're able to move it so that it's not a stationary house for the chickens. There.
So it's a protective building,
Yeah.
very lightweight for the chickens. and you can move it in the grass,
right.
so that they're fertilizing the grass.
And they're also getting fresh grass and bugs.
They're eating the bugs.
Yeah.
So they're having an impact on the soil and the soil life underneath it. And they're building the fertility of the soil. And they're growing protein.
Healthy protein. Yeah.
Good. They're in fresh air. They're having a party.
Yeah.
The soil's happy. It's having a party.
Yeah.
The grass is enthusiastic.
This sounds very regenerative.
You think we're going canoeing down the river?
Yeah. Yeah, not paddle up on that one.
Here's what happens. If you look at the food system, the Farm Bill, and millions of acres of corn and beans in a bare soil, and the soil is washing down the Mississippi, and then you take and you forget that, and you change your mind and say, how about if we put 1 million people on an acre, each having an acre, with a cow and some chickens and a garden and a house and a pig, and let them party all together.
Isn't that a picture?
Now you've got families that are growing their own food.
Yeah.
The kids are learning to milk the cow. The daughter knows how to make the butter. You're growing the garden together.
Yeah.
The soil is flourishing. The animals are happy. You don't have to drive to the store.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful picture. Help people who maybe aren't there yet understand why. You're telling me that I'm going to have my 9 to 5 and now I have to have a pig too. Help them understand why they should care about this.
Okay. We have used the industrial model, and we have developed it to the point where we have corporate capture. Let's just use the beef model. I think we've talked before. There's 4 companies. They control 85% of the beef. When COVID hit, they shut down. The workers were sick. It wasn't the best environment for the workers. Do you understand what I'm saying? We talked about on the farm when there was a negative trend through purebred cattle. Or overgrazing the soil.
Yes.
When you see problems, we need to think outside the box and figure out a new way to approach that that takes care of those. That solves the problem.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a 9 to 5 job. I've never had a 9 to 5 job. What's it like to have a 9 to 5
Well,
job?
those 9 to 5 job people are shopping at the grocery store to get their food, and they're consuming the conventionally raised foods, the heavily processed foods. They don't know any different. Why should what you're explaining? Because you just said, let's put 1 million people, let's give 1 million people their own acre. Why?
Okay. We don't have to do that. How many of you would like to have an acre and would like to have a family farm or bunny rabbit or some chickens or some ducks in the pond? Whatever your favorite animal or fruit trees.
Oh, it sounds so lovely.
Whatever you want. If you're not into that, I'm not trying to sell you something. I don't have any land that I'm trying to get rid of. I'm promoting an idea
right.
that is a solution to an industrial model that is failing us. Now, if it was creating healthy humans, and if the animals were healthy, and the soil was flourishing, we wouldn't be sitting here. There would be no need to even be talking about it.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
Well, and some people are only just now having their eyes open to the fact that that's not the case.
The soil, we're losing our topsoil.
Yes.
It's through mismanagement. That's just a fair appraisal of the whole thing.
Absolutely. You can't argue that. Absolutely.
Okay. Through mismanagement. Hugh Bennett went to Washington years ago when we had the Dust Bowl and the soil was blowing in Washington. Actually, the cloud of soil arrived as he was speaking. Hugh Bennett, Soil Conservation Service. And we're still struggling.
Yes,
we have not learned.
Nope.
60 years later. But we're going to get another chance at it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yep. Today's a new day.
Yes.
I've changed my farm. My children have changed it more than I changed it. I'm sure it's not finished being changed. There's a lot of dreams. So can we?
Well, so we have soil erosion. So that's a huge, so for somebody who's just now having their eyes opened to some of these concerns, why we should care about regenerative agriculture in the first place. We have soil erosion.
Yep.
What is something else that we're dealing with?
Well, diseases.
Yes, let's talk about that.
Let's talk the human condition. We've been talking about the plants and the soil and the animals.
Yeah.
Let's go over to the human condition. What kind of shape are we in?
Not a great one.
We are obese.
Just absolutely, there's a plethora of diseases and ailments that we're dealing with as a people.
So we could go back to the 1800s, and those diseases have been addressed and overcome. The new diseases.
Yeah, because you said this book was just written a year ago.
Right.
And you said, so I mean, this is happening right now.
We're in bad shape.
Yeah.
Diabetes, cancer, heart disease, the obesity. I mean, these are all connected to what we're putting in our bodies. The contamination of our water, the erosion of our soil,
Yes.
the chemicals,
We talked a lot about the pesticides in the last episode.
food additives. There might be over 10,000 food additives.
Yeah.
Stuff they're putting in our food.
Oh my gosh.
And I read out of the food, the milk,
Yes.
anything added.
Adulterates it.
Now, we think, well, the FDA is watching over that. The USDA is watching over that. Do you know what GRAS stands for?
No, I don't.
Generally recognized as safe.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. I think you've said that before.
So rather than the scientists testing out a new food additive, they just write up a paper and say that we recognize this as safe. And then it goes in your food.
Wow.
Now, we can look on the labels and we can see these long words. What do these things do to our bodies?
Right. Right. How are they affecting us?
Well, do we have any issues in the human realm as far as health today?
Yes, many.
Many.
Some of which you just listed, and there are many, many more.
Okay. We have autoimmune diseases. Now, where does this come from? Where your own body doesn't recognize something that's in there and it attacks it to try to protect yourself, and you have a reaction to that.
Right.
What's going on here?
Well, I don't know the answer to that scientifically, so I don't want to speculate or say directly, but I mean, for decades now, we've been consuming hydrogenated oils. We've been consuming pesticides through our food. We've got like we talked about in the last episode, the way that the animals are being raised isn't healthy. The soil isn't healthy.
Okay.
So I mean, there are a lot of different ways that you could speculate that.
So let me just give you an illustration.
Yeah.
When you pack a feedlot full of animals on dirt, and you feed them substances that are not grass. I'm trying to make this as friendly as I can because I know what they're feeding them.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to say it. They get a lot of E. coli
Gross.
in their meat.
Yeah.
And we have ground beef with E. coli in it.
Yeah.
Now, I have an excellent butcher, and a couple years ago, he has to do testing on the meat. And he picked some of ours because he knew it was grass-fed.
Yeah.
Grass-finished. The only thing they ever had was milk in the beginning and then grass. So they're clean.
Wonderful. That's
They're clean.
so good.
They're a healthy animal, and there is no contamination with E. coli. There's no antibiotics put in the feed because when you concentrate that many animals in, they use the antibiotics to enhance the growth rate and to prevent illness.
Right. Right.
And what it creates is antibiotic resistance. And then when we have human illness and that antibiotic resistance makes that antibiotic not being available, now we've got issues.
And you know what that screams to me in the spirit of this episode? That's not regenerative. And so when we're talking about regenerative farming and we're comparing it to the conventional model, it's not regenerative for our soil. It's not regenerative for the animals or the crops themselves. And it's not regenerative for us. And we're seeing that, in what he's talking about in here. We're seeing it in our health and the autoimmune diseases, all of the illnesses and ailments that we're finding. It's not regenerative.
Now let's take the herbicides. Herbicides are sprayed on monocrops to kill the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
And how do the weeds react to that?
They die?
Most of the weeds die, except some of them develop.
Oh, do they get stronger?
They get resistance.
They become super weeds.
So now what do?
Spray them more, harder.
Well, they use multiple herbicides
Yeah.
to try to get them. And what happens is nature, what survives, reproduces.
Mm-hmm.
Because that weed, even though you sprayed the field, it goes to seed.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And now their offspring are resistant to the herbicide.
Right.
This is going bad to worse.
That is.
Now what do?
I think that's the question, right? We haven't arrived there yet.
Well,
we're still in the perpetual state of that.
What we need to do is we need to benefit from a little humility.
Yeah.
And we just say, oops.
This isn't working.
This isn't working.
Right. Well, that would require us to swallow our pride and admit that.
Hey, if you can find a better way.
Yeah.
This is a dead end road.
It's not regenerative.
Yeah. And the industrial model is consolidated, so we have no competition in our food system.
Right.
And we have corporate capture in our food system. So the government is not intervening to change this.
No, because they're still profiting off of the way that it is.
They're taking our tax dollars and they're going to pass a farm bill that will subsidize a continuing of this. So the consumer is left with a choice.
Yeah.
What am I going to do to get out of this? Well, fortunately, if we don't support something with our dollars, it will cease.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and before we continue down that road, I just want to say that, this is something that everybody should care about. And when I asked you earlier, I was like, for the people who are just now getting into this and hearing about this, why should they care about it? And you painted a bit of a picture of that when you talked about the diseases and things like that. We're moving into now some solutions to that. So I want to pivot a little bit and I want you to talk about, because we've used the word regenerative quite a bit already in this episode. Let's start using the word sustainable, because the model that you just explained with the corporate capture and all of that, that is not sustainable. It's not regenerative and it's not sustainable. So how can we be both regenerative and sustainable? What does that look like? What are some of these solutions?
Well, the first thing is that we need to make choices.
Yes. Yeah, which is where you were headed.
Farmers need to make choices. When I was up at the summit in Albany, they had some marketing people, actually people that do podcasts and stuff, branding. And you have to figure out as a farmer what the consumer is looking for. And then you have to figure out how to meet that need. And for us, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience. We were a dairy farm. We were diversified in that we made maple syrup. We had some apples. We sold our meat, and we raised the bull calves for meat. So we had a lot of meat. And then we began to diversify. Actually, when COVID hit, the stores had no meat. How busy do you think we were?
Very. Christina told me that you guys were selling out.
That's what brought Megan to say, it takes 2 years to raise a steer. I'm going to get some meat chickens. We can raise protein in 8 weeks.
Quicker, yeah.
Which I thought, I wish I'd come up with that idea. Because the chickens put nitrogen in the soil.
Yes, they have their own use on the farm.
So now one little oops with COVID changed our animal
Wow.
model
Wow.
just because we saw the demand for protein, and the quickest way to supply that demand, people aren't going to wait 2 years to have their next burger.
I want to say that speaks to the regenerative spirit of this farm, that you guys were like, we have an issue here. What is the solution? Megan suggested the chickens. And you were like, great idea. Let's try that. And it takes a spirit of humility to be able to say, there's a problem here. What is the solution? Let's try something new. That is a solution in and of itself.
Do you think, just perhaps, there are a lot of solutions that we have not even imagined that are waiting for us?
Yes.
If we let go of what we're in the midst of and tried a different way.
If only they would put some of our tax dollars towards that.
I mean, just what the chickens are doing for the grass and the soil, and it makes the chickens ecstatic too.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because you used a word that I think goes right in line with both sustainability and being regenerative, and that's diversifying. Yep. So speak to how diversifying, and I say this as a solution. I want you to present this as a solution. How can diversifying, for people who already have farms, or for people who want to get into farming and they never thought of diversifying, how does that create a model that is both regenerative and sustainable? Diversifying.
Okay. So the diversifying will meet the needs of the soil because you have abundance of plants, animals, all of that is benefiting the soil.
Yeah.
We talked about Wisconsin growing the grains, and the animals changed the whole dynamic.
And that ended with cheese. They probably didn't even think it was going to go that direction, and that's where it ended.
Look at where Wisconsin is.
Yeah.
I mean, they were sinking fast.
Yeah.
But they had to get out of that boat and try
something different.
Putting animals on the land.
Yeah.
Instead of growing crops. Now, let's take Iowa. Let's say they watch this podcast and they say, that wouldn't work here.
Right. That's not a regenerative spirit.
There was a man, his name is Francis Thick. He's a soil expert, and he is in Iowa. And you know what he did? He put a dairy farm in his acreage, and he changed what was corn and beans to a dairy industry.
Wow.
And he retails it all within an hour of his farm.
That's wonderful.
Ice cream,
so good.
Milk, all the products.
Good.
Cows, cow manure going into the soil, grass growing on that soil. Now, if he did it, do you think somebody else might be able to do it?
Absolutely. And I just want to give us a quick definition of what diversifying for a farm means. What is that?
Well, it means a lot of fun.
It does.
We're just pulling the taps from the woods, from the maple harvest. Next is fence building. So we'll be repairing and fixing and building fence so that all the animals will be ready to go out on
to be
pasture.
Released, yeah.
What that does, this is the fun part of it. I don't have to feed them in the barn. I don't have to run the gutter cleaner. I don't have to spread the manure.
Because they're out.
They're feeding themselves. They're spreading their own manure. When they want a drink, they go to the water tub and get a drink.
Yeah.
If they want to get in the shade, they go in the shade.
Yeah.
All I have to do is open the next gate and let them into the next pasture.
Beautiful.
And it's like a dance.
Yeah. Wow.
And they're good until November.
Wow.
What am I going to do all summer?
Right. What are you going to do? What else do you have?
We have timber to cut.
Okay.
So Kelby and I cut and skid timber. We've got some ash trees that the ash borer is killing. We cut 6 triaxle loads last March. It's wet right now, but this week I've got the forester coming to mark 10 acres. And so we got timber to skid out. We got firewood to get ready for next winter.
Yes.
The beauty about diversity is every time I go to work, I've got a new activity.
Yes, beautiful.
It's fresh. It's new every morning. If it's a rainy day like today, we're doing a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the sun shines, we'll be building fence. Next will be the animals will be out on pasture.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll be baling hay,
Yeah.
filling the barn with hay.
Yeah.
The feeling of accomplishment when that is complete and we're ready for winter.
Yeah.
And then the wood is all stacked and the sugar bush, the sugar house, that firewood's all stacked.
Mm-hmm.
You're ready.
And then in the fall, you're harvesting apples?
We're harvesting apples. We're going to the cider mill.
Oh man, I still haven't had any of your cider.
They make donuts at the cider mill. You got to go to Harry Lane's cider mill. Harry, you're going to have to pay me for this commercial. He'll laugh.
I'd love to go.
But do you get the flavor of what life is like?
Yes. Do you sell your firewood?
We sell firewood.
So you sell apples, you sell firewood, you sell milk, you sell beef. So not only is this regenerative for you and your own family and your own land, but it's regenerative for your community because you're providing so many different products. So I just wanted to throw the diversity thing in there for a second because I think that speaks so well to what it means to be regenerative. I think if you're regenerative, you have an element of diversity in there as well, very likely.
And there's a lot of possibilities that I'm not interested in.
Oh yeah, so many.
That other people will be.
Elderberry. I know people they sell and create elderberry products. Yeah, the opportunities are just endless.
There's a high tunnel that's getting finished right out here.
Yeah.
Green thumbs. We're looking, I don't know how many plants we're looking at, but there's a lot of plants started here.
Yeah.
So, and the kids get involved.
Yes.
I mean,
it's so wonderful.
The grandchildren are go-to, boiling sap with me.
Oh, it's amazing.
Working with the plants, bringing the cows in. We have customers, and I tell the customers, come on down, milk a cow with us.
I'm going to take you up on that because I still haven't.
I had a grandson. He was from Michigan, not in my family, but we had a couple from Andover, and their grandchildren were here. And the grandson figured out how to milk a cow, and he was squirting milk at his grandfather, and he wouldn't stop.
Oh my gosh.
But you know what? They had an experience as a family.
Amazing. They'll never forget, and you never know if you planted the seed of farming in those kids.
And, this is what I do in my retirement. I give tours, and I answer questions, and I explain to them how this all works.
Yeah.
It's a solar-powered farm.
Yeah.
The sun is the energy source.
Amazing.
It uses the green photosynthesis of the plants. Mm-hmm. The cows eat that. How they convert it to white milk, I still have not figured out.
It's amazing.
And then all the products that you can make from the milk and all the animals that you can feed.
And it's a far cry from the feedlots and from just all the nasty brown, no green grass, the sun. It's just so very different.
It presents me with a challenge to figure out how to do all this. We need a lot of help.
Yeah.
We need the family. We have the family. We have a lot of employees. You know what it does? It creates jobs.
Yeah.
It creates opportunities for the younger generation to come here to be an intern, to learn how to do it, and then go do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. And it's very rewarding work.
And this is one of the things that the Commissioner of Agriculture was asking for, getting young people into agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
If we can diversify and change our mind and think about quality and multiple species and taking care of that soil, keeping it covered, managing the plants, not overgrazing. To me, it's fun just building the fences.
I feel like people wouldn't normally say that that's a fun task. You enjoy it?
Let me tell you an experience last year. Where was from, John? He was working for us. We were building fence, and we had a bar, and we're making fence post holes.
Okay.
And we're going down through, and then we put a post in, and then we pound it in. And this guy works out at the gym. Yeah, he's strong. He's bigger than I am.
Yeah.
And you make about 10 holes, and it's a workout.
I'm sure. I can't imagine.
And so we were switching. And I said, and he was ready to switch. I said, you ready to switch? And he's like, yeah. He's like, cardio, man. Cardio. I mean, he was getting every muscle in his body, and his heart was just pumping.
But that kind of work feels good.
Well, I was talking with one of my sons, I won't mention any name, and he has a very mild job, mostly editing. I didn't mention any names.
No, you didn't.
And he said one of the things that he misses is that feeling of accomplishment when you've unloaded loads of hay or you stacked a pile of wood or whatever that physical activity is. Even playing a game of soccer. You know, if you have a more of a desk job, there's a little something lacking there. I think he's happy.
A little bit, yeah. Not to say that those things can't be fulfilling, but there's just, I think everybody needs to have some element somewhere in their life of working with their hands and doing something physical. It just feels good.
Well, it makes you sleep good at night.
Yeah.
I told you my goal is to make it to 100. I don't take any drugs. I don't take any medicine. I get a lot of exercise, and I just keep going, and I like it.
Good.
You know, I feel good. I'm a happy camper. It's better than a gym membership. Let's put it that way.
Amen. All right, let's pivot a little bit and let's talk about organic farming. Now the question is, how does organic farming differ from regenerative farming? But I think regenerative farming goes even a little bit beyond organic farming, because I think you can be regenerative and organic, but you can be organic without being regenerative.
This is where it gets really interesting. I mentioned that the organic market has been compromised.
Yes.
There's some things approved that weren't approved. There's some people that are crossing lines. You can probably meet the letter of the law and be missing the whole point of the change that's trying to be made.
Yes.
This is where regenerative thinking, because regenerative, even in the definition, goes beyond the outward activity.
Yes. Yes.
This is more the motivation, the whole thought process, the creativity. This is getting into some real serious art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of taking the natural ecosystem that we have to work with, and it's a lot like coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take some gifted players, but if you're a John Wooden, a coach of UCLA, and you're not just winning championships, you're changing the behavior and the thought process of the athlete.
Wow.
I mean, you are building life as a coach.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, this is very, very fulfilling on a deep level. Not only you get to enjoy the delicious food and the benefits of your physical body, but I studied agriculture, and I learned what not to do.
Yeah.
In a land-grant university.
Yeah.
Get big and borrow a lot of money.
Right.
And I saw it failed. I told you I love to go to the auctions, but I knew somebody was failing to have that sale. So I knew it was failing, and I knew there had to be a better way.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, we've got a neighbor that did a history of our farm, and one of her statements was, my uncles and my farm are the only two farms that are still farming.
Wow. That's so sad.
There was 34 farms in this little town.
Yeah.
Now, he's on his farm and he's retired, so he doesn't have the milking herd, but he has animals there. And he's still baling hay, and he's still rotationally grazing. But I believe there's something beyond the farm. I'm talking about in the heart of humanity.
Oh, I completely agree.
That we need to instill in people.
Yes.
Now, I'm not just talking a better diet. I'm not talking happier animals.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what is life really about?
Yes.
What is life? Because the creation that we have to work with is so diverse. Every farm is going to be unique. And every farmer is going to have unique ideas and things that they're going to do. I mean, this is an art form
Yes.
of taking nature, taking the animals, taking the plants, and building a food system that thrives
Yeah.
and enhances. I see an orchestra director with we had most arts
Yes.
down here at Alfred University,
Yeah.
and they had a professional conductor come from Europe, and he had the professionals on every instrument, mostly violins, the stringed instruments. And I watched. Now they were only here for a week,
Wow.
and I watched him direct them and the music I listened to. That's a gift.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is.
And an appreciation for that. They didn't spend their whole lives playing together.
Right.
They just came together for 1 week.
Yeah.
But they had a conductor that could do
He
that.
stewarded them well.
And I see that as our human responsibility
Yes.
to conduct nature and let it be a symphony
Yes.
that produces something that will be fulfilling.
So you answered my question because I wanted to point out the difference between organic and regenerative. Regenerative, that's a spirit, whereas organic is just a set of rules.
Well, it's a defined government stipulation.
Yes, which even that word bothers me because before we industrialized, everything was organic. We were already organic.
What we need to understand is humanity is changing.
Yes. Yes.
We're learning.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a different person. Even though it's the same physical body, I have the same social security number,
Yes.
same driver's license. I'm a different person in my thought process than 20 years ago
Yes.
because I've learned a lot of information and I've changed a lot of behaviors.
Yes.
And I'm seeing different results. Now, if the results that we're seeing in America are what we want, then just keep doing what we're doing.
But they're not.
But they're not. I mean, across the board, even with our children.
Yes, exactly. So organic is not necessarily the answer. Because I really want to drive this point home because for somebody who's watching this and listening, these are just buzzwords. Like they don't hold the same meaning for just a consumer, somebody who's not farming. So they see the word organic. And I think for a lot of people, the points that we're trying to make for regenerative agriculture is implied, but they're not there. Organic does not necessarily mean that whoever is deemed organic in their operations are regeneratively farming. I just really wanted to make that distinction. You can be regenerative and be organic, but you can also be organic and not be regenerative.
You can do it as a use a football field, and you got a 50-yard line.
Yeah.
And everything from this end to the 50-yard line is industrial.
Yes.
And then you can show some changes. It's kind of like the sunset. It's changing all the time.
Yeah.
But regenerative is a mindset
Yes.
that is focused on the natural resource and the orchestration of playing that together
Yes.
in such a way that it will develop into its own.
Beautiful.
The food, the animals, it's going to thrive. The whole thing is just going to thrive.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We've talked about this metaphorically in quite a bit in this episode. To end this episode, I want you to give some real examples between factory farming, conventional farming, and regenerative farming. Paint us a picture. What are the differences?
If you have a monocrop, one species.
Yes. A field of corn, for
Okay.
example.
And we can go back to Wisconsin and the wheat that they were growing.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. It can be any plant. But if you have a monocrop, you're going to be less than what nature intended.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. You're doing more harm than good.
So these plants need each other. The soil needs all these different plants. When animals are grazing, this might be one of the best illustrations. There's multitudes of herbs and forbs and weeds and plants all throughout that pasture.
Yes.
And the cows know. I had orange juice this morning. I had a head cold a week ago.
Okay.
Okay. My body knows it needs vitamin C.
Yes. And so you crave
It
orange
craves
juice.
orange juice.
Yes. Beautiful.
Okay. That cow knows what it needs
Yes.
to keep it healthy and thriving.
Yeah, amazing.
And so all of creation, all of nature is designed to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team sport like soccer. You can't just have $1 million player and win a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to work together. And nature was designed to work together. And they enhance each other. They work together. There's different seasons when they're ripe and when they're not ripe. This should be a signal to us that there's something very complex going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to pick up on this, the power of observation. Now, Alan Savory, a lot of people love him, a lot of people hate him.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, he's from Zimbabwe, and he was managing like a national park, and he's a soil scientist.
Okay.
Okay, he's older than I am, very wise man, but he's still learning how to manage nature. He probably is the apex that I could have picked for a name to put in that position.
Okay.
Because he has the most experience. He is the source of holistic management.
Oh, good. Okay. I wasn't sure if we liked this guy or not, but I like him so far.
He has the Savory Institute,
Okay.
and he teaches holistic management, and there's millions of acres being managed that way.
Okay, great.
So he's not a small, unknown person.
Okay.
But he's still learning.
Yes.
And
I heard you say manage nature.
Yes.
Can we ever fully?
you see, because he will go to a national park where there is no monoculture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
And there's still
hundreds
soil
of
erosion
species.
and there's problems because it's being mismanaged. Because we took humanity out of there. We have a key role to play
Yeah.
in humanity as farmers,
Yes.
as gardeners, as moms and dads,
Yeah.
to work with nature and understand the best way to manage it. And that is going to take a lifetime and multiple lifetimes.
Yes.
And we still won't know that.
Yeah.
But we can take what our ancestors have learned. I've got the books from 1910.
Yeah.
There's a reason I read those old books.
Yeah.
And then I go forward and say, oh, this is the way they saw it then.
Yeah. It's powerful insight.
I wanted to get W.D. Horde up there to speak at the summit.
Yeah.
But Mr. Russell was there.
Mm-hmm.
Same time frame.
Wow.
And he wrote the book. So I
So-
had his book.
Give us some practical tips then. So we've laid this all out really well, I think, and we've explained, why we should care about these things, what these terms mean. So for somebody listening who wants to implement this in their life, I want you to talk about this 2 different ways to end this. For somebody who already is farming and is getting into it or is very interested and will be soon, I want you to give a couple of tips for regenerative farming. And then for the person watching who isn't a farmer, isn't ever going to be a farmer, how can they have a regenerative spirit in their life? I can speak to the second one for sure, but I definitely speak to the first one for me because you are a farmer. So speak from the farmer's perspective.
I'm not typically described as speechless.
That wasn't in the notes. Those 2 questions.
Okay. For a person who wants to be a farmer,
Yes.
How to-
or already is, yeah. What are some tips?
some tips. If it's always been done that way, question it. Really look at it from all angles.
Yeah.
I'm not saying throw it out.
Yeah. But question it.
I'm saying apply your thought process, what you know, what experience you have gained, what you can read, to what you're looking at. I gave the example of the golden retriever,
Yes, with the hips. Yep.
okay? Just look as broad and as honestly as you can at the problem and say, what would help?
Yes.
Crossbreeding with a different breed would make a different cow that would have fewer problems. That's a step in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree.
So don't get buried in it, but just step back and look at it with a open perspective and try to figure out what direction do I need to go to help solve this?
Yes.
It's never going to be completely solved. We're always going to have problems because there's always going to be more to learn. But what direction do I need to go? If you have a monoculture, try diversifying.
Yeah.
If you have one species, could we get a flock of chickens?
Mm-hmm.
Rabbits?
And research it. How do these things
I don't have an animal in mind. I'm just saying
whatever suits their acreage and their situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What could I include
Diversify.
that I'm lacking?
Yes.
To try to increase the diversity.
Yeah. Love that. Excellent advice. Well, I'll answer the second question, and it's really funny because my answer is the exact same answer that you just gave. For the person who isn't farming and is just trying to live their life, they shop at the grocery store, my advice would be the same. Stand back, look at what the problem is, and think, what can we do about this? And really question everything. Question everything. And that lends itself to a regenerative spirit. And that's what I think so many people are lacking. They're inundated from birth with all of these ideas and concepts that so many of us just never even question. And we have all of these problems surrounding us that we just accept. Oh, well, yeah, I have to take this medication for the rest of my life because I've got this thing and that's just the way it is. No. Stand back and look at the problem. For the dog, it's the hips. For the people, it could be diabetes or asthma or whatever it may be. Have an inquisitive spirit. Stand back and say, are there other solutions to this? And then start to dig. And I think that lends itself to a regenerative spirit.
And if I could add one more thing, don't be fearful and don't doubt that you can have a thought that might work.
Yes.
Because
that's great.
Most of what I shared today are a direct result of changing a behavior.
That's good.
And also seeing a failure.
Yes.
Don't be afraid of
and
failing
not afraid of it. It's a lesson.
Yeah. Well, if this doesn't work, Edison created a lot of light bulbs that didn't light.
Yeah.
And his attitude was, well, I know what doesn't work.
Well, and look at modern medicine. How do you think they're figuring all that out? Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Why we have just as much of a right to pursue that.
Yeah.
Individually.
So really, there's a lot of solutions waiting for us.
So good.
To give them a chance.
That's a good word.
Who knows what we might come up with?
Yeah. Beautiful. Excellent. Oh, wow. This was a really good podcast episode, Jerry. Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks, guys, for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you in the next episode.